Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The scent of synthetic vanilla was suffocating, a cloying sweetness that did nothing to mask the underlying copper tang of fresh blood. Julian backed into the cold, marble counter of his laboratory, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird as the man looming over him wiped a crimson smear from his cheek with a pristine, white handkerchief. Kieran Silas, the butcher of the East End, stood in a three-piece cream suit that looked jarringly innocent on his massive, corded frame, his silver eyes dilated with a manic sort of devotion. Kieran didn't look like a crime lord tonight. He looked like a twisted parody of a debutante's date, drenched in a bottle of sugar-spun perfume that clashed violently with the murderous aura radiating from his pores. "You're shaking," Kieran murmured, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the floorboards. He took a step closer, trapping Julian between his hard body and the unforgiving stone. "Why are you shaking, Julian?" "I listened. I did what you said. I scrubbed the city off my skin. I put on the white suit. I doused myself in this confection." He leaned down, burying his face in the crook of Julian's neck, inhaling deeply before whispering against the pulse point. "You said you liked them sweet. You said you liked them clean. Smell me. My scent is sweet now. Does this not please you?" Julian's breath hitched, terror warring with a dark, unwanted heat in his belly. It was the logic of a predator trying to mimic a house cat, unaware that the disguise only made the claws more terrifying. To understand how the city's most reclusive perfumer ended up trapped in the penthouse of its most violent alpha, one had to understand the economy of scent. In a world governed by biological dynamics, scent was currency, and Julian Vane was the mint. Julian was a recessive omega, a biological rarity that allowed him to exist on the fringes of society without drawing the aggressive attention of alphas. He was beta-passing, bland enough to be ignored, but possessed a nose so sensitive he could identify the chemical composition of a cologne from 3 rooms away. He lived a sterile, curated life. He dated betas, soft, polite men who smelled of soap and laundry detergent. He liked things orderly. He liked things safe. Kieran Silas was the antithesis of safety. Kieran was a prime alpha, a genetic anomaly of pure aggression and dominance. He ran the syndicate that controlled the docks, the gambling dens, and the high-stakes underground fighting rings. His natural pheromones were described by those unfortunate enough to smell them as overwhelmed ozone and scorched earth. He was a walking natural disaster. Their paths crossed 3 months ago, not by fate, but by necessity. Kieran had a meeting with a rival faction, the Triads. He needed to mask his aggression to secure a treaty. He needed a scent blocker that didn't just mute him, but completely rewrote his olfactory signature. He had kidnapped Julian to make it. It was supposed to be a transaction. Julian created the mask, a blend of cedar and rain, and Kieran paid him 3 times the market value. But Kieran hadn't let him go. "You smell like peace," Kieran had said that first night, looming over Julian in the sterile lab, ignoring the gun his bodyguard had pointed at Julian's head. "I've never smelled peace before." Since then, Julian had become a bird in a gilded cage. He wasn't a prisoner in the traditional sense. He could leave the penthouse, he could work, but Kieran was always there. A shadow, a looming presence. Kieran courted him with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. He brought gifts, rare orchids, stolen art, and once, a severed finger of a man who had catcalled Julian on the street. Julian had been horrified. "I want normalcy," he had screamed, throwing the box containing the finger across the room. "I like gentle men. I like sweet boys who don't smell like gunpowder and death. I like cleanliness." Kieran. That outburst had been a mistake. Julian had meant it as a rejection. Kieran, with the twisted logic of a man who had never been told no, took it as a set of instructions. Which brought them to the present moment. Kieran had been disappearing for days, leaving Julian alone in the sprawling penthouse that overlooked the neon-drenched city. When he returned tonight, he had undergone a metamorphosis. The black tactical gear was gone, replaced by soft cashmere and light colors. The scent of ozone was buried under gallons of Sugar Bliss, a cheap, popular scent worn by teenage betas. It was grotesque. "Kieran," Julian choked out, turning his head away as the alpha nuzzled his jaw. The synthetic vanilla was making him nauseous. Stop. Please. Kieran pulled back, his brow furrowed. The expression on his scarred face was one of genuine confusion, which was almost more frightening than his anger. Is it the brand? I bought the most expensive one. The clerk said it smells like innocence. You are not innocent, Julian whispered, his hands pressing against Kieran's chest. He could feel the heavy, slow beat of the alpha's heart through the layers of expensive fabric. You can't just paint over what you are. I can change, Kieran insisted, his voice hardening, slipping out of the soft persona he was trying to inhabit. I removed the threats. I cleaned the streets you walk on. I washed the blood off my hands before I touched you. Am I not sweet now? Am I not what you asked for? No, Julian snapped, the fear momentarily eclipsed by frustration. You look like a wolf wearing a sheep's skin, Kieran. It doesn't make you a sheep. It just makes you a nightmare. Kieran froze. The air in the room grew heavy, the atmospheric pressure dropping as the alpha's control slipped. The cloying vanilla scent seemed to curdle, pierced by the sharp, acidic spike of Kieran's natural pheromones, burnt wood and ozone. I am trying, Kieran said, his voice dropping to a terrifyingly quiet register. To be what you want. Because if I am myself, if I let myself be what I am, I will devour you. And I do not want to break you, Julian. This was the crux of the madness. Kieran believed Julian was made of glass. He believed that his own nature was too abrasive, too toxic for the delicate Omega. So, he contorted himself, performing this grotesque pantomime of gentleness because he was terrified that his true touch would shatter the only thing he had ever loved. I didn't ask you to change, Julian said, his voice trembling. I asked you to leave me alone. That, Kieran said, his eyes darkening to the color of a stormy sea, is the one thing I cannot do. Before Julian could respond, the elevator doors at the far end of the penthouse chimed. It wasn't the soft ding of a guest arrival. It was the emergency override alarm. Kieran's demeanor shifted instantly. The confused suitor vanished. The sweet boy facade shattered. His spine straightened, his muscles coiled, and he shoved Julian behind him with a force that knocked the wind out of the smaller man. Get to the panic room, Kieran ordered. The fake softness was gone from his voice. It was pure steel. Kieran. The triads, Kieran growled, reaching under the pristine marble counter and pulling out a jagged, serrated combat knife that he had taped there, just in case. They didn't appreciate the peace treaty. The glass walls of the penthouse exploded inward. Shards of safety glass rained down like diamonds as men in dark tactical gear rappelled from the roof. The sound was deafening, a cacophony of shattering glass and automatic gunfire. Julian scrambled backward, slipping on the slick floor. He watched, paralyzed, as Kieran moved. It was a dance of violence. Kieran didn't seek cover. He surged forward, a blur of cream fabric and lethal intent. The first attacker landed, raising a submachine gun, but Kieran was already inside his guard. The knife flashed. A spray of red coated the white suit, ruining the pristine facade in a heartbeat. Kieran moved with a brutality that was nauseating to behold and impossible to look away from. He was a monster. He was death incarnate. He ripped through the hit squad with efficiency, using his body as a weapon, ignoring the graze of a bullet against his shoulder. The smell of vanilla vanished, obliterated by the overwhelming stench of iron, cordite, and the intense, spicy aroma of a furious alpha. Julian didn't run to the panic room. He couldn't. He was transfixed. He watched Kieran snap a man's arm like a dry twig. He watched the alpha roar, a sound that wasn't human, releasing a wave of dominance pheromones that forced the attackers to hesitate, their biological instincts screaming at them to submit to the apex predator. In the center of the carnage, Kieran was magnificent. It was a terrible thought, one that Julian tried to suppress, but it bloomed in his chest, hot and undeniable. The beta boyfriends he had dated, the safe, clean, sweet men, would be dead right now. They would be cowering. They would be useless. Kieran was a monster, yes, but he was Julian's monster. The fight ended as quickly as it began. 6 men lay on the floor, groaning or silent. Kieran stood in the center of the ruin, his chest heaving. The cream suit was destroyed, soaked in red. His hair was wild, sweat making it cling to his forehead. He turned slowly to face Julian. Kieran looked devastated. He dropped the knife, the clatter loud in the sudden silence. He looked down at his ruined clothes, at the blood dripping from his hands. I ruined it, Kieran rasped, his voice raw. He didn't move toward Julian. He stepped back, as if afraid of contaminating him. I tried to be clean. I tried to be sweet. Look at me. I'm filth. He looked at Julian with eyes full of shame. The alpha, who had just slaughtered a hit squad without blinking, was trembling because he had failed to be a clean boy. Kieran. Julian stepped forward, his shoes crunching on the glass. Stay back, Kieran warned, holding up a bloody hand. The scent. The pheromones. It's too much. It will make you sick. I reek of violence. Julian didn't stop. He navigated the debris, his heart pounding not with fear, but with adrenaline and something deeper. He stopped inches from Kieran. The smell was overpowering. Musk, sweat, blood, and the lingering, pathetic note of synthetic vanilla trying to survive underneath it all. You're right, Julian said softly. You smell terrible. Kieran flinched as if he'd been struck. I know. Go to the room. I'll call the cleaners. Julian reached out and took Kieran's blood-slicked hand. The contact sent a jolt through both of them. Kieran froze, staring at their joined hands. One pale and trembling, the other scarred and crimson. I said I liked sweet boys, Julian murmured, stepping closer, until his white shirt pressed against Kieran's ruined suit, staining his own clothes with the blood of their enemies. I said I liked them clean because I thought clean meant safe. He reached up, cupping Kieran's jaw. The alpha stopped breathing. But safe doesn't keep me alive, Julian whispered. And that fake sweetness. That vanilla. It was a lie. It wasn't you. I want to be what you want, Kieran pleaded, his eyes desperate. I can try harder. I can. Stop, Julian commanded. For a recessive Omega, his voice held a surprising amount of authority. He pulled Kieran's head down. I don't want the performance, Kieran. I don't want the mask. Julian buried his face in Kieran's neck, right over the pulse point, bypassing the collar of the ruined suit. He inhaled. He breathed in the copper, the sweat, the burning ozone of the alpha's rage. It was heavy, dark, and intoxicating. It triggered instincts Julian didn't know he had, the primal recognition of a mate, of a protector. You smell like a forest fire, Julian mumbled against his skin. You smell like ruin, Julian. But, Julian pulled back, looking into the silver eyes. It's honest. And right now, God help me. It's the only thing I want to smell. Kieran stared at him, shock slowly bleeding into a raw, hungry hope. You accept this? The blood? The violence. I don't love the violence, Julian corrected, his thumb brushing a smear of red from Kieran's cheek. But I realized something while watching you. What? I never said I liked sweet alphas. Something in Kieran snapped. The restraint that had been holding him back, the delicate handling he had enforced upon himself, shattered along with the windows. He let out a low growl and wrapped his arms around Julian, lifting him off the floor. Julian, Kieran groaned, burying his face in Julian's hair. Mine. You're mine. Yours, Julian admitted, no longer fighting the gravity of the situation. Kieran carried him out of the wreckage of the living room, ignoring the chaos, ignoring the impending arrival of the police or the cleaners. He carried Julian toward the master bedroom, his grip bruising, possessive, and entirely devoid of the sweetness he had tried so hard to fabricate. As they passed the threshold, Kieran paused, looking down at the Omega in his arms. I will burn the world for you, Kieran promised, the truth of it heavy in the air. But I will never wear that damn vanilla again. Julian laughed, a breathless, hysterical sound, and looped his arms around the butcher's neck. Good. I prefer the scent of the wolf anyway. And that is how the butcher claimed his nose, not with sugar and lies, but with blood and truth. If you enjoyed seeing the sweet facade crumble to reveal the beast beneath, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, is it better to have a partner who is safe, or one who is dangerous to everyone but you? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then,